Hello, nice to meet you. In advance, I am aware that my name is pronounced the same as Subway Line 2 in Korean. I am Professor Lee Ho-seon from Soongsil Cyber University. Thank you. I think about 2 years ago, I gave a lecture here on SEBASI. The title was How to Make Friends as You Get Older and How to Make Good Friends. And it was also the topic of my lecture. Anyway, as the views accumulated, when I added up everything, including the shorts this time, it turned out to be over 4.5 million. So I thought, wow, that's pretty good. And when a video's a hit, you have to check out the comments, right? When I went through the comments, about half of them basically said, "Friend's my foot. Being alone is more comfortable." Comments like these made up the majority, and I think the people who left such comments are probably those who have been deeply hurt, are completely fed up with relationships, or maybe even have festering wounds from relationships. So rather than suffer, they would rather choose solitude. Perhaps they had to make that kind of decision. Yes. We may say things like this, but that doesn't mean we can actually spend every single day of our lives, all day long, always alone. We know from experience what it's like to be alone, and that's not easy too. But since I work in counseling, I encounter a lot of different cases, and recently, a man in his 50s, quite robust, came in. This fairly robust man came in for counseling on a Friday, and there's actually a certain pattern among people who come in on Fridays. That pattern is that most of them either come in crying or with a face that's just about to burst into tears. And as someone came in, I figured, here comes another person who's having a hard time. But when he actually walked in, his tie was perfectly straight. His clothes were also impeccably neat, and on top of that, he was tall and even good-looking. So when he walked in, we wondered, what could be going on? We were a bit curious, but as soon as he sat down, the first thing he said was, "I feel like I'm going to die every Friday. Fridays are terrifying for me." That's what he said. So I wondered what he meant. After listening, I found out that about 5 years ago, he got divorced and moved to a rural area where he worked in an office job. But the thing about that workplace was that many of the employees had also come down from Seoul. So when Friday came, all the other co-workers would head back up to Seoul, and he would always end up working late alone every Friday and Saturday. After a while, as he kept working overtime by himself on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, there came a point when just the thought of Friday or Friday and Saturday would make him feel scared, because he kept being left alone. After going through this a few times, as soon as people started talking about Friday coming up, even from Wednesday, he would start trembling and his heart would pound. He began to experience what we commonly call panic symptoms. So after coming here and talking at length about his fear of Fridays, he ended up crying a lot before leaving. After that, we scheduled the next appointment, wrapped up our work, and everyone else left. Since I had to go home too, I thought I'd tidy up and leave around 11 at night. But suddenly, I felt a chill run down the back of my neck. It was really chilling. Then I looked at the calendar, only to find out the date to be Friday the 13th. I was so startled at that moment. You know how sometimes you suddenly get really scared? So I rushed out, taking the main road, running as fast as I could, and I even fell and scraped my knees along the way. Most of us have probably experienced something like this at least once or twice. And when you think about it, for some people, these moments can go beyond loneliness and actually become fear, which also might even turn into pain. We might often get thoughts like these. And while it might sound like we're talking about loneliness in an extreme way, the truth is, all of us have felt lonely at least once or twice. There probably isn't anyone who can honestly say they've never been lonely. But since everyone feels lonely, and if you're not feeling lonely right now, don't worry. You'll probably feel lonely soon enough. In that sense, humans are inherently lonely beings. Since our lives begin alone, right from the womb, solitude and loneliness can be seen as fundamental and innate characteristics. Yet, even so, it's also true that when we actually face serious loneliness or isolation, we often find ourselves unprepared to deal with it. So just because that's the situation we're given, does that mean we should simply accept it and do nothing? I don't think we should. What if this becomes a problem and then a serious issue? What should we do then? We have to survive. Then we need to be able to handle it. It would be good to have some countermeasures, then some alternatives as well. So the first thing I want to share with you today in our study of loneliness is that loneliness, too, has its own colors. You may have heard people say that emotions have colors. Surprisingly, when people who say they feel lonely or depressed come to counseling and are asked about the color of their emotions, the answer is almost always gray. It's black. There is someone who gave solitude its colors. I'll tell you who. It's a man named Reinhold Messner. He published a book. The book is titled White Solitude. When even solitude is left alone in this world at the end, there is black solitude and there is white solitude. This is what he says. So then, what is white solitude? It's that dazzling sense of freedom you feel when you reach the top of a mountain. That is what white solitude is. He describes it this way, and at the same time, the overwhelming, almost devouring snowstorm you experience while climbing up and down, that is black solitude. That's how we put it. There's something we come to realize. I guess mountains aren't for me. They are better when viewed from afar. And from some distance, though instead, I run marathons. I don't see much faith in your eyes. I run 10 kilometers. 10 kilometers, never any farther than that. Oh, I forgot to mention that it takes me an entire day to the finish line. But anyway, those of you who have run marathons even a little will know, after running for a while, you start to feel a kind of euphoria rising from deep inside for some reason. A sense of accomplishment rises up, but ultimately, this is an emotion that comes to me in the solitary moment of running alone. This is probably a white solitude. Then, on the other side, there must also be black solitude. So what is this black solitude? You can probably guess. Overwhelming traumas that completely engulf you, becoming a lifelong scar along with repeating despair, as well as the feeling of loss, or in the midst of terrible domestic violence, the misery of having to take those blows all by yourself. Such moments are like crushing someone like an aluminum foil. Emotions shrink, causing extreme terror. This is a kind of black solitude. In the end, we will experience both white solitude and black solitude at the same time, but sometimes this black solitude in life hits us hard. There are times when it mercilessly strikes us on the back of the head. If I had to choose one among these moments, I think it would be a moment of intense solitude, a moment of profound loneliness. The second thing we need to know when studying, especially when studying loneliness, is that loneliness is not fair. There are certain people who are more vulnerable to it. The BBC conducted a very interesting study. They selected leading professors from 3 universities in the UK and conducted an online survey on loneliness with 50,000 people from all over the world. As a result, some truly surprising findings began to emerge. When they looked at who feels loneliness the most, the first finding was that the younger you are, the lonelier you tend to feel. The younger. The second finding was that people who are more socially adept actually feel loneliness much more frequently. And that's not all. We usually associate loneliness with autumn or winter when the cold wind blows, but it turns out that loneliness has no season. In fact, regardless of the season, I could feel lonely at any time, just randomly and for no particular reason. But according to another study, people actually feel lonelier in the blazing hot summer than in winter. There are studies like this too. Turns out that the burning summer is lonelier than winter, like getting frostbite in the middle of a fire. When we look at the characteristics of loneliness like this, it leads us to think about another trait that people who feel a lot of loneliness tend to have. Are these people lacking in empathy? No. In fact, research shows that people who are more prone to loneliness actually have higher than average levels of social empathy. So it's kind of similar to people who fall in love easily but become vulnerable when they break up. Looks like you've been through a lot of breakups. If we put together everything we've talked about so far and think about what kind of person would be the most loneliest, it is this very sociable someone walking down the street on a midsummer day. This young social person who has fallen deeply in love and is now facing a breakup. That's the kind of result we see. As humans, we all have certain dualities, right? So it's the same with loneliness. You might maintain a normal social life whilst feeling lonely. That is fine, though. You might be very active socially, but still always have a sense of loneliness somewhere in your heart. Nothing strange about that. At this level, it's completely normal. Everyone has moments in life when they feel lonely. You can think of this as the basic duality of emotions that humans possess. But the problem arises not with this duality of emotions, but when loneliness becomes so severe and overwhelming that it digs deep into your life and pierces your heart. There are people who experience this. People who find themselves in this situation absolutely need to have a way to deal with their loneliness. They need to have a method for handling it. There's a reason to this. How do I view loneliness? It is something like diabetes. It's a condition that needs to be managed. Why does it need to be managed consistently? Because loneliness is in fact an involuntary sense of isolation that I didn't choose, isn't it? On top of that, it's contagious. This keeps repeating continuously. In the end, if I don't manage this emotion, there's a very high chance that I'll become someone who is completely isolated. And as I mentioned, it's contagious. When one person passes it on to another, and that person to even more people, it eventually becomes a huge, massive collective emotion, which means it can become a social problem. That's why the UK has a minister for loneliness, and similarly, Japan has a minister for solitude. These ministers must hate the book 100 Years of Solitude. Am I right? But then I wondered, what about South Korea? Our case is no different. Recently, I did a bit of my own analysis on various YouTube channels, excluding political ones, and found that there are about 4 main topics that are being featured very actively. So, what is the first topic? Let's neither give nor receive help. The second is, if you have valuable information, make sure to keep it to yourself. Third, love costs money. And lastly, cut off all difficult relationships completely. There's a lot of content like this, and perhaps because of it, our country actually ranks last among OECD countries in terms of social solidarity. So, do you have someone to rely on when in trouble? To this question, 27.6%, so 3 out of 10 people answered that they don't have any family or friends around them who can offer good help. This means that it's not a safe situation for anyone. In that sense, it's time for us to seriously start studying loneliness. The third story begins. What is it exactly? How do we deal with loneliness that inevitably comes our way? Is there an emergency kit that can save me from loneliness? If such a thing existed, having one at home would help us get by. We might even think, at least I could endure it a bit better. Now, let me tell you this. No, I'm better off on my own. I can live well by myself. To those of you who declare this, let me say this. Our philosopher, Schopenhauer, said this. Solitude is also a skill. It is a skill indeed. Why? Because, as I mentioned, solitude is literally the process of voluntarily isolating oneself. But loneliness is different. It's not a skill. It requires both preparation and a remedy at the same time. For people who are okay with it, good for you. Whether it's voluntary or involuntary, great. So, what's the problem? You need a coping kit for loneliness. And the reason you need this kit is very obvious. Lonely people deserve happiness too. It is natural. If you can live alone and live well, then it's not a problem. Oh, do you think love is all you need? Do you really think so? If love was all it took, we wouldn't even be sitting here right now. Isn't that right? But even when we are in love, sometimes we still feel lonely, even when we're together. We're humans, after all. So, how can we avoid being trapped by loneliness? Avoid becoming isolated and turn black solitude into white solitude? What is it that we, the lonely ones, need more than love? A loneliness coping kit. I'm going to tell you about it now. It's called Self-Care 129 Call. 129 Call? It's a set of 4 things. Before we start, there's something really important about this. It's free. The crucial part, if it costs money, it wouldn't be easy, but it's free. First, let's start with the 1 in 129 Call. It tells you to repeatedly recite a mantra whenever possible. Some of you might not know what a mantra is, but it's a Sanskrit word. This means mind, and tra means tool. It means a tool for the mind. In the end, a mantra can be defined as a series of words or syllables that I repeat to prevent myself from falling into negative states that arise in my mind and to help me focus on a healthy state. If I were to put this into my own words, I think it could be expressed like this. It might be nice to call it my own magic spell or my own calming mantra. You see, loneliness is not an emotion. Loneliness is a state. Naturally, it can change. Hence, we need to be able to shift our state and calm our minds. This is when a mantra really shows its power. There are mantras we already know. You might remember Kim Young-chul, who became well known to us through the show Kim Young-chul's Neighborhood, who also played the role of Gung Ye. In the drama, he introduces us to a Buddhist mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. I asked someone from the Buddhist community about this, and they said it's not usually interpreted literally. But if you really try to interpret it, it means, oh, jewel in my lotus. It is said that by repeating this, your worries and sins disappear and you gain all kinds of wisdom. That's how it's known. There's a friend of mine who knew how great this mantra was. He tried really hard to memorize it, but just couldn't remember it anymore at some point. So once he recited, "Oh, my pandamania." Yes. Apparently, he did it like that once. Well, as long as it doesn't turn into a curse, it doesn't matter at all. What's important is that it serves its purpose. For those of you who practice Buddhism, you can use something like Om Mani Padme Hum. I go to church. I go to the cathedral. For those who are Christian, the Lord's Prayer is great too. Bible verses work as well. Also, we all have words or phrases we like to use often, right? Ebenezer, Ifa, expressions like these, if you use them repeatedly, it's great. And those who have experienced how much these can help empower your mind already know their value. But there's a problem. They're all too long. So for those of you who say you can't remember them well, I'd like to recommend something. There's this phrase in Latin. It's pronounced cum deo. That's right, cum deo. The first word means together, with, and deo means God. So it means with God. But when you use cum deo, don't just say the words. It's really great if you use your hands together with it like this, cum deo, cum deo, cum deo, cum deo, cum deo. Clench your fists inward and pull them towards you, doing this 5 times. You'll be amazed at the sense of peace and calm it brings to your heart. As if something is holding you steady. I'm sure you'll definitely feel these things. Once you've chosen your mantra, whatever it may be, don't change it for at least 6 months, and try repeating it steadily, every day, whenever you can. I'm very certain that you'll definitely feel how this acts as an anchor for your mind, as if it's bringing you to a huge, safe stronghold where nothing will be able to shake you. Now, that's one thing. That's what a mantra is. Now, secondly, you need to have 2 hobbies. A hobby, in essence, is the ultimate form of enjoying time alone. So, if you look at the book Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, there's a discussion about hobbies, and it says that a hobby is where the highest level of expertise and the greatest enjoyment meet. That is how he puts it. Ultimately, having a hobby means focusing more on my own choices, an act that oneself voluntarily immerses into. Using mantra-like wordplays or such word powers to steady one's mind is one thing. However, creating your own funland is another, instead of other people's worlds. I am suggesting you to invite yourself and experience the world of being your own fan, your own self-otaku world. But I recommend having 1 hobby outside the house. Then have 1 more inside the house as well. If you have 1 hobby for indoors and 1 for outdoors, you'll be able to enjoy yourself alone for the rest of your life. Among the phrase 1, 2, 9 call, this 9 refers to an act of refine, an act of salvation. This act means doing something that saves not only yourself but also others. I recommend that you look for ways to help and start by doing 1 good deed a day. You know those signboards that have fallen over? If one has been knocked down by the wind, it's fine to pick it up. Maybe hold the revolving door open for a moment. Or if you see trash on the street, it's fine to pick up just 1. If you want to volunteer at a free meal center or something, even better. So if you do 1 good deed a day, you absolutely have to write it down. You're going to forget it soon. Write it down no matter what. But what's really amazing is that we call this kind of thing altruistic behavior. And whether it's formal or informal, once you start doing it, 2 effects occur. First, the Mother Teresa effect. The Mother Teresa effect means that just by witnessing a good deed, your immune system improves and you become healthier. So imagine how much better it is if you actually perform a good deed yourself. Another thing is what we call the helper's high. The helper's high is the sense of psychological fulfillment you get when you help someone. The sense of this warm, proud feeling, This feeling usually lasts for several days, and sometimes even weeks. So let's say you joined a volunteer organization. This is saving yourself. Then you're saving the world too. On top of that, you gain a sense of belonging. It's a double thumbs up, that's how I'll put it. So, everyone, if you ever feel lonely, just go outside your house right away, close your eyes tight, and boldly pick up 2 pieces of trash. You shouldn't pick it up secretly. You have to do it openly. Either put it in your pocket or hold it and head to the trash can so everyone can see. A surprisingly pleasant sense of fulfillment will start to set in because it's a fulfillment that marks the beginning of life's meaning. Start now. That begins right away. I really hope you'll remember this. Someone just said, Amen. Right. Next, among 129 call, there's call. When things get tough, you have to make a call. Ring my bell, right? Pain is subjective, so others might not see it the same way, but for me, it's always a perfect score out of 100. That's why we say that loneliness is an illness. If it's an illness, just like we go to the hospital when we're sick, when we're lonely, we should seek out a professional, or don't hesitate to call the free number, 129. It's free service provided by the Ministry of Health and Welfare. Oh, but I don't want to hear anyone's voice. Then what should you do? For you, we have prepared a Kakao Talk Plus friend. So if you go into Kakao Talk and add 129 as a plus friend, you'll be instantly connected, allowing you to chat and get the help you need at the same time. Feeling lonely? You know what to do. Call 129. I think it would be great if everyone could join the Kakao Plus friend service together. Now, when it comes to loneliness, there are so many stories and discussions we could have, but there's something I'd like to share with you. When we think about making a fire, we think of flint. And to start a fire, you need 2 pieces of flint. That's what people say. The amazing thing about flint is that both pieces don't need to move. Even when only one moves, there's a spark. Everyone here? I hope you'll reach out to friends whose social warmth has cooled, give them a call, or send them a message out of the blue. When I say this, a lot of MZ generation folks respond like this. Me? Why? You hear this a lot, right? It feels really awkward, doesn't it? It was really awkward for me too. But it's this kind of awkward courage from us that can rekindle the spark in someone else's life. So whether you become either kind of flint, make it your own mantra, with 2 hobbies, or as an act of salvation, with our help, with a phone call, let's begin with this simple action. I really hope you will do this. Remember, this action isn't just a simple act. It's joining in the divine symphony that ignites the flame of life in both yourself and others. In Kumdeo, I hope you will join in the dance of life with God, saving yourself, your neighbors, and your community together through 129 call. This concludes the lecture. Thank you.